Well, I wanted to intro this show with Fly Me to the Moon, but I promise I won't ruin your day by singing it. We'll have Julia cue it up later. I woke up this morning, and Jamie does these wonderful, constantly, even 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, she's aggregating news headlines. She's sending them to me. So when I wake up in the morning, what do I see? And I see a headline. I'm going to read it to you, which really shocked me. If you follow me on Twitter, at Lisa Wexler, this won't surprise you. The headline was, U.S. Jews not able to fly on Delta flights to Saudi Arabia. And it was an article that reappeared in the Huffington Post, and it was published by something called the Religion News Service by a woman named Michelle Chabin, C-H-A-B-I-N, Chabin, I don't know how she pronounces it. Anyway, I read the whole article, and essentially the article says that Delta has made an alliance with Saudi Arabian Airlines and with Saudi Arabia, such that in 2012, Delta Airlines passengers will have to be subjected to the same discriminatory standards that all people are that fly to Saudi Arabia. Here are what some of them. People who wish to enter the country must have a sponsor. Women must be met at the Saudi airport by a man who will act as their chaperone. Saudi Arabia bans anyone with an Israeli stamp in their passport from entering the country, even if they're on their way to someplace else. And many Jews believe the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has also withheld visas from travelers that simply have Jewish-sounding names. In addition, religious items such as Bibles that are not related to Islam may be confiscated at the airport, and no one is allowed to be riding on the plane on the way into Saudi Arabia that wears a Christian cross or any other non-Islamic kind of faith, symbol of faith. The airline did not deny the new policy, but insisted it has no control over who may fly to Saudi Arabia. Delta's argument is simply this. Delta says it has to comply with all applicable laws in every country it serves, adding that passengers are responsible for obtaining the necessary travel documents required for entry. So if a passenger travels without proper documents, then it's the passenger's fault that they're denied entry. The January 10th agreement allows Saudi Arabian Airlines to become a member of Skyteam. This is the first time that there is a Skyteam member from the Middle East. The Saudi airline is Skyteam's first member from the Middle East, and that is the partnership that Delta Airlines has. Now, I want to tell you that this has caused a whole cascade on the blogosphere, on the Twitter sphere, of people that I think are understandably outraged that a U.S. carrier, Delta Airlines, would partner with a country and basically by partnering with it, put under its own umbrella the flights to Saudi Arabia that are subject to these same discriminatory laws. And their answer, their public relations answer that they in fact themselves don't discriminate, is rather weak, because Saudi Arabia is one of the only countries on the planet, I can't say it's the only, but one of the only, that is so obviously discriminatory on its face about people who can come into the country. It's one of the only. And by partnering with it and allowing it to have all the advantages of the Skyteam, they're essentially condoning the policy. There's really no other way to look at it. So what was interesting to me, a little bit of an editorial note, but I think it speaks volumes, is that the original headline, the headline that I read early this morning, said U.S. Jews not able to fly on Delta flights to Saudi Arabia. That headline is the one that garnered so much attention. They changed the headline. You want to know what the new headline is? The new headline is something much more nondescript, something much less likely to be noticed. The new headline is, Delta partnership may cause travel headaches for non-Muslims. You read that and you think, oh, okay, whatever. What does that mean? Everyone has travel headaches. Your eyes glaze over. You see a headline that says U.S. Jews not able to fly on Delta flights. That's a whole different story. But in the meantime, the body of the article itself has not been changed because the truth of it has not changed. You're listening to the Lisa Wexler Show We're going to talk about this and more. 203-845-3044. Let me ask you, as somebody who has no doubt flown Delta, do you think that it is perfectly appropriate, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, for an American airline to partner with whoever it chooses and then subject itself to that airline's policies, that this is in the course of doing business and we should all grow up and be sophisticated? Or do you think, wait a minute, would Delta Airlines partner with an airline that might have gone into South Africa years ago and said no blacks permitted on these seats, or you cannot enter this country if you have a different color skin? Can you imagine such a thing? The uproar, the hue and cry? Why is this any different? I ask you, what do you think? Does this make you more or less likely to fly Delta Airlines? Do you care? All right, let's go to Harding first in Norwalk. We're talking about Delta Airlines and their policy of partnering with Saudi Arabian Airlines. Harding, what do you make of this?
Well, first of all, I think any airline should be allowed to partner with anybody else they want to.
Well, I agree with that.
Anything illegal. Now, the reason you've got this situation has nothing to do with Delta Airlines. It has everything to do with Saudi Arabia, because when you go onto an aircraft and you're headed to whatever country and you show them your passport, they're looking for your visa. And if you don't have a visa, and Jews cannot get a visa to Saudi Arabia, the airline is not going to seat you, because what you do is you end up flying to Saudi Arabia, sitting on the plane because you can't disembark, sitting back on that plane and flying back to the U.S. And, boy, by the way, they're going to charge you for the return flight.
All right, so let me ask you something. Let's assume that's all true, and it is. What do you think about a U.S. airline forming an alliance? I'm asking you not about legally. I agree with you. They're totally, I don't even want to go into the legalities or not. I wouldn't even want the federal government to interfere, although there are people who think it may be against federal law. They're looking into it, but I'm not even going there, Harding. I'm not. I'm just asking you as a matter of good business, as a matter of being a corporate citizen. Is it the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do?
Well, considering our U.S. government has turned a blind eye to the fact that 17 of the hijackers on 9/11 were from Saudi Arabia and they did nothing, obviously if people think that the government's taking the lead, then there's nothing wrong with it. I think that they have weighed the public, what they thought was going to be the public outcry versus the money, and I think they misjudged.
I think that's a good point. I hope they misjudged. My mom is sort of cynical about this. When I told her the story, she's like, oh, forget about it, Lisa, nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's just another Jew. Nobody cares. I can understand her attitude. I just was chatting with a couple of friends who came back from Italy, and they told me, and they're native-speaking Italians, but they are naturalized citizens here in this country and have far more allegiance to this country even than to Italy. And they told me that the outright anti-Americanism and anti-Semitism, which is often lumped together, by the way, over there, is staggering in the casualness, in the way in which it's open conversation now and allowed and okay to say things like people are left dying on hospital steps, nobody helps anyone in America, they're all controlled by the money-thieving Jews. I mean, all of that, and they just say it in open conversation.
But that shows you how ignorant they are, because no one in this country is ever left dying on the steps of a hospital. That's illegal.
I know that, but
what I would like to do, and it's not to balance the budget, it has nothing to do with it, because it's less than 1%. I would like to start yanking all the foreign aid.
You would start okay.
You don't like us. You think we're horrible. Okay, fine. Live on your own.
So
watch what happens immediately, because some of these outfits could not sustain themselves without the American aid or the American business.
So would you extend that even to Pakistan?
I might, considering I'm sure they knew about Osama bin Laden for the last 3 or 4 years, because that's how long they've been building that compound.
These are very tough decisions. They're very complex.
I know, and everybody jumps on us when they think we're, quote, invading, like Iraq, but the moment you had the stuff in in Serbia, Herzegovina, and all that. They said, "Where's the U.S.? You're supposed to be in here taking care of our problem."
That's very, very true.
Well, wait a minute. We can't win.
No, we can't win for losing.
In the public relations thing, we can't win.
We can't win. But I have to tell you, stepping back, that I really believe there is a two-faced hypocrisy here, and that when there was the apartheid regime with South Africa, that there is no way in hell a company like Delta would have in any way condoned it by creating an alliance with an entity that aided and abetted that policy.
No, because that's because you have more blacks and more vocal blacks in this country than you have Jews or vocal Jews.
Well, maybe that's the case, but it
is. They just make a big deal out of it, and I'm sorry that you and I discussed this before. How come so many Jews voted for Barack Obama, considering what he was planning to do? Now, maybe this next time around, they'll wake up having seen what he does.
Maybe so. Harding, I want to thank you for the call. Always.
All right, have a good day.